Welcome to Cage Minds MMA show. I'm Micah Frankel. I'd appreciate it if you went and checked out cageminds.com and to pick up your Cage Minds apparel, you'll do so at nmproshop.com. A lot to get to this week, as last Friday we had a triple header of events. The PFL, LFA, and Invicta. We'll start out with that final playoff event for the PFL final semifinals, featherweights and light heavyweights. The main event, Movlid Khabibulov was able to show his wrestling, get the takedown. Definitely, in my book, won the first two rounds. Got busted up a little bit in the third round, but did enough to advance past Brandon Loughnane. In the other featherweight semifinal, Bubba Jenkins initiated the takedowns, but it was Chris Wade reversing, getting the superior position for the majority of the rounds, and also doing the majority of the striking. So your featherweight finals for the 2021 PFL is Movlid Khabibulov versus Chris Wade. Light heavyweight division, Emilio Sorde versus Antonio Carlos Jr. And it was Carlos Jr. with his pressure, with his takedown attempts, with a big takedown in the first round. In the third round, advances past the 2019 champion Emiliano Sorde. And then Cesar Ferreira, Martin Hamlet, your other semifinal at 205. And Ferreira, on the first kick, has an injury, goes down. Hamlet with the ground and pound, advances in just 13 seconds, looked like a pulled hamstring. There's some rumors and speculation coming from Chris Camozzi that he thought Ferreira looked like he was injured earlier in the week. Who knows? Just saying, that's been thrown out there. Hamlet versus Antonio Carlos Jr. for $1 million and that 205-pound championship. On the undercard, couple pair of spectacular finishes as Shayman Moraes uncorked an overhand right that put Lazar Stojanovic on his back in the ground and pound. Finished it up. It was a wild fight where Stojanovic had been winning with his aggression until that moment. And opening up the card, Jacob Kilburn was pushing back Brandon Jenkins with combinations and chopping at the legs until Jenkins exploded forward with a switch step jumping knee. Right knee went first, the left knee came up behind, the right knee was blocked, the left knee lands clean, and an out of nowhere knockout. Move on to LFA. You had LFA 114, a pair of title fights there. In the main event, it's Bruno Souza versus Javier Garcia, 145-pound vacant championship on the line. And Souza early gets taken down. He has to escape from a Darce choke, but then the karate black belt finds his rhythm, is able to keep the distance, and had the advantage on the effective striking for the next 4 rounds. Garcia did get takedowns in the 4th and 5th, but couldn't get much done. And Bruno Souza, the Machida protege, picks up that 145-pound title. Co-main event, interim flyweight title fight. Charles Johnson, who had just won the title belt, defending against Juan Camilo. Camilo looking for the takedowns, pushing forward. Charles Johnson defending, found himself in a bit of trouble as Camilo was looking for the neck to finish the first round. We get to the second round, and it's Johnson still using his striking to keep Camilo at bay. A head kick, right hand forces Camilo into a bad shot, and the ground and pound finish after stuffing that takedown comes for Charles Johnson. So he's won that interim title, and now he's defended it. Talking about spectacular finishes, we had a heavyweight bout that was the feature fight, and Jimmy Lawson let the hands go, handing Anthony Garrett his 5th loss. It was just a couple seconds, followed in jab, right hand. The right hand clips Garrett. He looks out on his feet. One more right to the temple, and the big man comes crumbling down. Jimmy Lawson with the quick knockout victory. And then at Invicta FC, the early prelims were on Access TV. Then they went to the Fight TV pay-per-view for the main card, opening up those prelims. Kayla Yontef versus Carly Chandler, and Yontef went right to her bread and butter, got in the clinch, dragged the fight to the ground, and from backmount gets the ground and pound in the second round. The commentary had even commented it didn't look like Yontef was looking for the submission. No, she went for that Khabib-style ground and pound beat down and was able to get it. And also let you guys know that we'll have a long format podcast coming up this week with Kayla. Got to sit down with her very recently for a good long time to hear about her and her journey and all about that pro debut victory. Looking on further up the card, we'll get right to the good stuff, right to the 2 championship fights. The bantamweight champion is now Tisha Tenen, picking up that vacant title, outboxing Lisa Versazo. You look at it across the board, domination, the jab, 1-2, keeping Versazo at bay. Tenen still looking great. A Phoenix Rising tournament title, and then now the actual title, just putting her mark all over Invicta. And in the main event, it's one of the candidates for knockout of the year. Emily Ducote defeats Danielle Taylor. They're about to exchange, and it's Ducote with a right hook right on the chin, followed up by a head kick. The right had Taylor out on her feet in a way that I hadn't seen somebody standing up and sleeping before, and then the Frankenstein monster got put out epically with the head kick in the ref jumping in. Ducote, she had challenged for titles in Invicta and Bellator before. This had to be sweet, getting that title wrapped around her waist. Then Saturday, it was time for the UFC, the Ultimate Fighter 29 finale, UFC Vegas 35, UFC Fight Night, BArboza versus Chikadze. Yes, it was all of those. And the main event was what we hoped it was going to be. A duel between 2 incredible strikers, 2 top 10 featherweights, Barboza and Chikadze. Early on, it was Edson Barboza. It was his variety that was getting the better of Giga Chikadze. But I gotta say, I scored that first round for Giga after a couple late body kicks were able to sneak through, and they looked to be the most damaging shots of the round. The second, the Brazilian fought back. Barboza gets back in with the calf kicks and right hooks to the body. He looked to have figured out the Georgian at that point, but Chikadze comes back in the third, a right knee to the body. It causes the reaction of the Barboza, hands dropping. A right hand comes over the top from Chikadze, and that sends Barboza on the run, trying to skirt across the fence and escape danger. Chikadze is pressuring, following another right hook, a right hook to the body with the knockdown. Barboza going for a leg lock. We know he has a jiu-jitsu background, an underrated ground game, but still taking punches from the top. Giga escapes that leg lock, gets on top, even goes for a Darce choke. Would we see the kickboxing specialist get the submission? No, he would not. Barboza would be able to get back to his feet, and it's a left, right, left from Chikadze, sending Barboza falling back to the canvas, and the ref jumping in for the stoppage. You got to expect Chikadze came in at 10, Barboza at 9. It's just going to be a quick switch in the rankings, but it really does cement the former kickboxing world champion as one of the top strikers in the UFC and in that UFC featherweight division, alongside names like Yair Rodriguez and Max Holloway. I know that it was a great call out. You got to worry about the call outs. Will they be the right caliber? And Chikadze took the moment, called out Max Holloway, called out to be the alternate for Volkanovski versus Ortega. When you have that microphone and you have that moment, you have to take advantage of it. I gotta say, if there's some people you don't want to call out, you're Chikadze in his camp, you're probably trying to avoid Josh Emmett, a huge wrestling background. Even Chan Sung Jung, dude, the guy is another level on the ground. But if Dan Ige, Arnold Allen, Calvin Cater, Yair Rodriguez, or Max Holloway want to get it, those are the fights that you would want if your team Giga. On the other side, Edson Barboza, another moment that could have put him right in title contention, seems to be missed for one of the greatest knockout artists we have in UFC history. If you're in his camp, you're hoping the next fight is against Sadiq Youssef. That keeps you against a top 15 opponent who's primarily a striker, because after that, I'm looking at a lot of young, hungry, more than capable grapplers. As I said, it was the TUF 29 finale. Crown champion at middleweight is Bryan Battle. An ill-timed spinning back elbow from Gilbert Urbina gets him out of position. Battle answers with a double leg. Urbina shows the back. Battle takes it and gets the rear naked choke finish. Ricky Tiburcios versus Brady Hiestand goes all the way to the judges' scorecard. It was back and first, but Tiburcios had the edge in effective striking and takes the split decision. Funny enough, I think it's going to be Tiburcios. He's going to stay there at 135 pounds. Will Battle, I see him cutting down and going to 170 after winning the Ultimate Fighter here at 185 pounds. I see that also for Gilbert Urbina. Not to mention for Andre Petroski, who beat Michael Gilmore TKO from ground and pound earlier on the main card. It was Petroski, right overhand right to double leg. Great fundamental transition for a wrestler to learn. He was on top in the first round, ended the second round in mount, and in the third round advanced to mount and even got that Dagestani handcuff punch to finish, and it had that handcuff wrapped around the head. So Petroski, he looks like he has the frame at 85, but says he wants to attempt 172. Definitely talking about some 185ers when we talk about the biggest upset on the card. Mahmoud Muradov had Gerald Meerschaert hurt with big right hands. He had him on the fence. He had him in trouble. He had his opportunities. And then his defense started to lag. And Meerschaert just started to fire off the left hands, clipping Muradov. There was some uppercuts. There was some overhands. He hurts him in the second round. And then is able to drag the fight to the ground. Gets the win by rear naked choke. Meerschaert, an incredible guillotine, incredible on your back credentials. When you have him hurt, he's a guy you have to go after. Muradov, a 14-fight win streak. Looked like he really, I thought, had a lot of promise to crack the top 15. Huge upset, credible victory there from Meerschaert. And on the prelims, boy did they end with some fireworks, as it was one big right head kick from Abdul Razak Al-Hassan that takes out Alexio De Serco. Sam Alvey versus Wellington Thurman. It goes all the way to a split decision, but it really felt like it was a Thurman fight. A spinning back elbow in the first round lands just under the Alvey eye and rips Sam a gash, something nasty. Thurman had control and pressure in the second round. The third round, Wellington loses 2 points for the fingers. Keep the fingers up, man. Stop trying to poke guys in the eyes. The Three Stooges move is not cool in the UFC. Even with those deductions, he did win each round. So it's about 28-27 in a split decision fashion that Thurman takes the victory. And one more great finish to talk about. Dustin Jacoby versus Darren Stewart. Jacoby popping away with the jab. Stewart obviously feeling uncomfortable. He's trying to look for the takedown, trying to find his entry into a closer range. He's not able to do it, as it's that jab, the left hook, the 1-2, and it's a Darren Stewart backing up to the fence. He is definitely hurt, peppering shots, trying to evade and avoid. The left hook lands clean, and the ref is jumping in. A great finish for Justin Jacoby to start off the night. It was definitely a fun fight night. I feel like some of the most dramatic finishes come from the cards flying under the radar. Turn our attention to the news, and the biggest news this week is UFC 268, still slated for October to take place in Madison Square Garden in New York City. The co-main event officially announced, and it's a championship doubleheader. So the co-feature, Rose Namajunas defending the women's strawweight championship in a rematch, that much expected, against Zhang Weili, not number one contender Carla Esparza, as some had expected. You couldn't understand the rematch with Weili is big business. That card, we had announced a couple fights last week, couple more other additions for the meat of the card to bring up. Irene Aldana, Jermaine Durandame in a top 5 women's bantamweight matchup. And in a intriguing lightweight bout, Alaya Quinta is going to take on King Bobby Green. Now, Juliana Pena said that she wanted to fight for an interim women's bantamweight championship if she did not get the title fight with Amanda Nunes before the end of the year. Well, she's in luck. December 11th, UFC 269, that women's bantamweight title fight has been rebooked. And this week, it's the return of Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, the beginning of 10 straight weeks of action. So this week's fights gets started right away. You barely get time to breathe. It's a 4-fight card in all, starting off with unbeaten American AJ Fletcher taking on Leonardo Diamani from Italy. You have Carlos Candelario, who's unbeaten at 8-0, taking on former LFA, well, actually, excuse me on that one, the current LFA flyweight champion, Victor Altamirano. So if he wins, he goes to the UFC. If it doesn't go so well for him on the Contender Series, he can go back and fight Charles Johnson to unify the two titles. Co-main event, battle between Brazilian finishers at featherweight, Diego Lopes, who has been putting in his work recently on the Lux promotion that you can see on UFC Fight Pass, taking on Yorinson Burrito, who has won like 14. Anderson Burrito, who has went on a killer win streak. Main event, you have Asmat Muradov, unbeaten Russian, taking on Matthias Scheffel, a streaking Brazilian. Saturday, it's UFC Fight Night. Well, actually, it's UFC Fight Morning. Prelims start early. We're talking about 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, so that's 10:30 a.m. Pacific. This is the card that was supposed to be UFC London. Now ends up, though, due to travel restrictions, back at the Apex. You have a top 10 middleweight matchup as the main event. Number 5 ranked Derek Brunson against number 7 ranked Darren Till. Brunson coming in a 4-fight win streak. Names like Theodoro, Heinrich, Shabazian, and most recently the short notice opponent Kevin Holland, who he was able to ragdoll with that wrestling game. 12 wins by knockout of his 22 for Brunson. Well, Darren Till has 18 victories. 10 have come by knockout. Till at 170 made it all the way up to challenging Tyrone Woodley for that world title. Here at 185 pounds, a debut victory over Kelvin Gastelum, who I know he's been in a slump, but we've seen the guy against the best of the best perform, so a win over him does say something about your level of skill. But Till looking to rebound from a loss to Robert Whittaker. So you wonder, how will Till handle the pressure wrestling of a guy up a weight class? I really want to say that even though Till fought Tyrone Woodley, Woodley wasn't pressuring for the takedowns. We haven't really seen against a collegiate American wrestler what Till's wrestling defense looks like, and I think it's going to get put to the test. You also got to remember, both of these guys pack big power. That's why they are knockout artists. Co-main event is a heavyweight matchup with a lot of potential. It's Tom Aspinall, number 13 in the rankings, taking on number 14, Sergey Spivak. It was supposed to be Aspinall versus Sergey Pavlich, but due to visa issues, Pavlich not able to make it over here. So instead, Spivak is jumping in, the Moldovan, on short notice. Aspinall, 3-0 in the UFC on a 6-fight win streak. Overall, fast hands, the 6-fight win streak. 5 knockouts. The most recent win, a submission of Andrei Arlovsky. And if you know one thing, Arlovsky does not get submitted often. His sambo has been so underrated. That speaks volumes about the skill level of Aspinall. Spivak started off 1-2 in the UFC, and since then, a 3-fight win streak, coming off of a decision win over Alexei Oleinik. You saw how utterly exhausted he was in that fight, but he was able to avoid the savvy vet submission attempts. Spivak does have a grappling advantage in this one, but I think that Aspinall has a bigger edge and there's a bigger disparity in the striking game. Aspinall is a guy that you could circle right here, has the opportunity in this heavyweight division to really make a jump up those rankings. We know there's the big names like Miocic and Gon and Ngannou and John Jones, but I think there's an opportunity for Aspinall to make himself a contender very quickly. As we continue to look at this card, scroll a little bit further on down, not too far, just going to the feature fight. You got Germany's David Zawada taking on Alex Moreno. Zawada, 11 wins by submission, but he really hasn't found his stride inside of the octagon. While on the other hand, Alex Moreno is coming off of a first-round TKO of Donald Cerrone, his 8th win in the UFC. If there's a fight on the main card that could steal Fight of the Night honors, it would be that contest. Opening up the main card, it's a long-awaited debut as Paddy Pimblett, the former 2-division Cage Warriors champion, equaling the same feat that Conor McGregor pulled off, makes his UFC debut against Brazilian Luigi Vandermini from Brazil, who's 1-2 inside of the octagon. A tank with his 9 victories and 2 losses. Pimblett has 12 finishes, 5 by knockout, 7 by submission. On the prelims, Jack Shore, I'm being at 14-0. This is a bantamweight matchup. He's going to be taking on Ludwig Shaolin on a 4-fight win streak that includes an LFA win over Vincent Cachera. Well, Shore is 3-0 in the UFC. 2 of those 3 wins by rear naked choke. The Welsh fighter with a big performance here. I think it's an opportunity at a ranked opponent in one of the UFC's deepest divisions. And on the prelims, if you're looking for that fight flying under the radar that could earn the bonus, a Fight of the Night candidate, we're looking at Canadian Charles Jourdain versus American Juliana Rosa. That one could be fireworks. So you got the Contender Series back, and then you got a UFC Fight Night in the afternoon. Planning, it looks like, for that one to be over early as the main card starts at 4:30 Eastern Time. So you're probably looking at still getting a nice night out if you want it. Also, if you did want to, you could go visit CageMinds.com. And again, to find your Cage Minds apparel, that's nmproshop.com. Keep up with Cage Minds on social media. On Facebook, it's Cage Minds Combat Sports News. On Twitter, it's at Cage Minds MMA. On Instagram, it's Cage Minds _CSN. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.